Hang on. Okay, they'll hear me now. And now I don't know if they can't hear you. Hold on a second. Okay, don't ask me why. Now they should be able to hear you. Okay, let's start
Hello.
again. Yeah, you're there. Let's start again.
Yes.
Hold on. Let's start all over again.
This was the silent radio version of the Joe and Joe show, ladies and gentlemen.
1 second. I'm rewinding as we speak. Okay, now here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Well, we've got showers and thunderstorms to our south, and what's left over from those showers and thunderstorms will bring a period of rain and a few downpours overnight into tomorrow morning in some parts of the northern mid-Atlantic to southern New England. But fear not, because once that goes away, we will start the process to get us into all that beautiful dry air that you see on that satellite picture in the northern plains and into the western Great Lakes. That is all moving eastward to give us a nice weekend. And after that, we may even have some rain. So we've got a little bit of everything for everybody, including the very quiet tropics. All that and more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. If your yard's been decimated by the heat, you need to replace the mulch this coming fall. Well, they still got plenty of that. A little too early for the winter salt season. And also, don't forget, make sure you've got everything you need just in case we get a tropical storm or a hurricane. You want to make sure you'll be able to get through it. Head over to Omni. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. That's the second time I had to do this today.
Yes, very weird. I don't know why. Maybe there was a Windows update overnight. I don't know, but all my settings, the settings were changed to the default speakers instead of the correct ones. And now we're all back and everybody can hear us. So welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. If you are new to my YouTube channel, I'm Joe Chaffee, and Joe Rayo is my colleague and friend for 40 plus years to my left.
Yes.
We are occasionally joined at the hip. When something happens to him, something happens to me, and then when something happens to me, the same thing happens to him. Okay, so you owe me a leg. I'm a little bit ahead of you, so you owe me a leg. So
all right.
I thought tonight, why don't we? I noticed that a certain person is going to be on a certain network talking about celestial beings or whatever it is that's going up in the sky.
Well,
so let's do the absolutely, utterly shameless self-promotion right now at the top of the show while we have everybody's attention.
I really wasn't going to say anything about it, but I'll say it since you brought it up that just minutes before I appeared on our nightly Joe and Joe show, the folks over at Fox Weather. And we do have a few people over at Fox Weather that are familiar. Our dear friend Jeff Banson.
Yes, and, dear Jeffrey. Nominated, by the way, for an Emmy Award for Best Weathercast. And
that's right.
And I hope he wins. I'm so proud of him that he got nominated.
He's
so proud.
He's a good guy. He's a very good guy. We have John Marshall, who periodically used to appear on CBS Channel 2, and before that, NBC Channel 4. And now he's over at Fox Weather. And we also have Amy Freeze, who used to be on Channel 7, and she's also at Fox Weather. So if you ever get around to watching Fox Weather on whatever platform you may have, you can see those familiar faces. But this evening, this familiar face was on for a few minutes, talking about the so-called super moon, the Sturgeon moon, Joe.
Yes.
Sturgeon moon of August.
Which, by the way, is highly endangered. Sturgeons around the world are highly endangered. If you ever...
and they said...
If you ever catch one, you're supposed to...
On the interview, they said to me, it's the Sturgeon moon. I said, really? It sounds fishy to me. But,
Who writes your dialogue?
Hey, look, I'm no Bob Hope. And if any of you out there ask who Bob Hope is, forget about it.
Yes.
And also we have the Perseid meteor shower, and that's going to be peaking on Friday night with most of the meteors obliterated by the light of the brilliant moon. But every once in a while, you'll get a very bright shooting star or meteoroid that comes dashing through the atmosphere at about 60 kilometers or 36 miles per second, which will light up the sky for a few seconds, giving you, and here's a Chiappiism, giving you a cheap thrill.
Yes.
A chance to see a, and leave a little streak in the sky. If we didn't have the moon up there this weekend, you'd see, dozens, scores of meteors. But with the moon shining like a gigantic spotlight in the sky, don't expect to see more than a few per hour. But it's midsummer. You want to go outside, stretch out on a long beach or lounge chair and look up under what really will be, Joe, I think, cool, clear, mostly clear, and very comfortable conditions. Hey, some of you overnight on Friday night will drop into the 50s. Open the windows. My goodness, it's been so long. My air conditioner is going to make when I turn it off finally, probably on Friday, it's going to go, it's been going nonstop for like 2 weeks. But as you mentioned at the top of the show, Joe, finally, some relief from all of the oppressive heat and humidity that we've been putting up with all of these days.
And by the way, I went back and I looked at I went back and counted. I think I counted right. So for New York City, as measured in Central Park, 19 days above 90 degrees this summer. Okay.
Right.
And in this last stretch, it was not anything spectacular because they had 2 days in there where the high was only 89. Now, Central Park tends to run lower than everybody else for some odd reason. We know Newark is the new LaGuardia and is 3 to 4 degrees higher than everybody else. So, I mean, if you looked at Newark numbers, you'd say, oh, that was a pretty relatively impressive heat wave, not too shabby and from the standpoint of heat waves. You look at the New York City numbers, and it's like you shrug your shoulders. It's like, okay, 2 days that it got up to the mid 90s, and then the rest, or maybe was it 1 day or 2 days? Maybe 2 days that it got to middle 90s, and then the rest of that, I said there were 2 days in there that were 89, so it wasn't even 7 consecutive days for that one particular point. But let's not.
So ridiculous is that Newark. You mentioned Newark. Newark had a heat wave where they had, I think, like 5 or 6 consecutive days at 100 or more. That's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. And also, by the way, we shouldn't I don't want to underplay it either because, especially in upstate New York, I saw a post from Albany regarding the number of times they've been over 90 degrees. I think they're actually ahead. If I remember, the number was 21. So they're actually 2 ahead of New York City. So up there, that's impressive. But yeah, you got to look at. You always have to remember, you can't just focus on one point. You can't focus on where you are yourself personally or your own zip code, because there is a bit of a rest of a world out there, and you want to, sort of absorb all that information and, come to conclusions from that information. You don't want to do it off of any one point. So we got rid of the heat. Now we got to get rid.
It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. Under normal circumstances, normal, and of course we've had abnormal weather for the past week or 10 days, but under normal circumstances, if you stepped outside today, you would have come back inside and said, oh, boy, it's warm and it really is humid. But today felt really nice as compared to what we've been dealing with for the past at least week or so. For example, at Westchester County Airport in White Plains, yesterday, the high temperature at Westchester County Airport yesterday, 95 with a dew point of 74.
That's atrocious.
Today at Westchester County Airport, the high was 84 and the dew point was 67. Now, again, 84, 67, that's not exactly a cool, dry, pleasant day. That is muggy by the 67 dew point. But again, compared to yesterday when the dew points were at 74, that was a 7-degree drop in dew point, an 11-degree drop in temperature, and that combination made it actually feel not too bad out there today. If you think today was not too bad, wait until you see what's coming our way for Friday and the upcoming weekend.
Now we need to solve the rain problem. And I was looking at some of the models, kind of rooting a little bit for the European, because the European has what looks like a nice soaking rain for the early part of next week. You know, the GFS on the 18, I didn't look at the 18Z run yet, but on the earlier run, seemed to be having some problems with how it was handling moisture coming up in pieces, and there it's left, it's right. And the European's been a little more consistent, showing it could be a decent rain. Not something that comes in and goes out in 10 minutes. I mean, something that lasts for a hour, at least 5 or 6 hours, or maybe even more than that, and getting maybe a couple of waves of rain that you'll have to deal with maybe Monday into Tuesday. But we'll talk about that. The tropics, the Atlantic side. I think a lot of hurricane watchers and the long-range hurricane forecasters are sort of scratching their heads at this point, thinking it's a La Nina year, and the Atlantic Basin should be starting to rev up now, and there's no sign of it. And that, the wave that came off the African coast, all of a sudden there's this giant upper low. We'll show it on the satellite loop. There's this giant upper low out there to the north of it, and it just can't develop. It just doesn't have. The conditions are just not there. So I guess they're sort of scratching their heads, wondering what's the problem. And I'm not exactly sure what is the problem at this point. Not that we want these things to form, but we're sort of wondering at some point something's got to give here.
Well, I mentioned a couple of days ago on Monday on the CBS Evening News, the gentleman who does the weather periodically for them from the Weather Channel, which is now their new partner at CBS. He was saying that, and we look at the tropics, there's there's something coming off of the African coast, has a 40% chance that it's going to develop soon and yesterday that dropped to a 20% chance. And tonight, the National Hurricane Center in Florida has that tropical wave still on the map, but now the formation chance for some activity, tropical storm or hurricane, is now down to 10% in the next 48 hours.
Yeah, it's not happening.
And down to 10% through 5 days. I doubt very much if that thing is going to still be on the map by tomorrow or on Friday.
No, the remnant, the remnant wave will probably survive as an identifiable feature. We talked about this yesterday, about whether that might eventually, some of that moisture might get involved with what's going on off the East Coast. And that still might be the case. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, as we look at the satellite loop tonight, we're most eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England down to southern New Jersey, not seeing much action. But have your radars ready, Joe, for the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, because it's blowing up down there. And whatever's left of those thunderstorms, which are kind of peaking in intensity right now, there's a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings that are up in and around Chesapeake Bay. Some of that is going to survive during the night. Maybe not the full-scale thunderstorms, but the heavier downpours might survive, and that area is going to move northeastward. We're waiting for this ripple on the old frontal boundary from yesterday to move on through, because if you look up to the north across the Great Lakes, you see the stream of clouds there. That's the upper trough that's getting ready to drop southward and southeastward into the northeast. That's going to bring us this delightful weather. So we just have to take our medicine here with some of this moisture that's developed in the mid-Atlantic states, and then after that we'll be in good shape. Also seeing a lot of clouds and some blow-up of thunderstorms down in the Gulf, along the Florida Panhandle and down into Alabama and Georgia. You see it there on the satellite loop, and also back further to the west in parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, into Texas, much like what we saw last night. And the column of moisture bringing showers up into the northwestern part of the United States continues. Although today it's a little bit further east than it was yesterday, so it's eastern Nevada on up into eastern. I'm sorry, yeah, eastern Washington, Idaho, western Montana. That's all streaming up northward. And here's the wide view on the radar of what I'm talking about with what's down in Virginia and into Maryland. And Mr. Rayo is going to uh, bring up the local radars there so we could take a look at what is going on at the moment. And
Yes, I will.
yes, and go ahead. It's all yours. Take it away.
All right. All right. Well, which do you want to see first? You want to see? Actually, there's not much to show you on OKX
No,
on the
I would
radar
I would go
from up
to
DC.
you could try Dover and then go to Wakefield and then go to the
Okay.
go down to Richmond.
All right, sir. All right, hang on. We're going there. So yeah. Well, let's try this one, Sterling, Virginia, and you can see that we have a band here of heavy rainfall and probably embedded thunderstorm activity, which is rapidly moving toward Chesapeake Bay in this particular shot, and other showers over in western sections of Maryland and the panhandle of West Virginia. So they are getting some ample moisture down there and around the nation's capital as well. Let's switch over and go to, let's say, I want to try Philadelphia just for the heck of it, just to see how close the
Philadelphia.
rain is coming. Here's Philadelphia right here, and you can see it on the southwest part of the radar that the moisture is beginning to creep in, slowly but surely making its way toward the north and east. And let's go down to Dover, Delaware, and you can see that same band of heavy precipitation, again, working its way toward the Chesapeake Bay area, down toward Wallops Island in the southern tip of the Delmarva. There's also some rainfall. Notice, however, Joe, that for the most part, for much of New Jersey, much of Pennsylvania, and points north into the tri-state area, not much to talk about. No precipitation yet, although later at night, tonight, after midnight, we may see some of this moisture move up as far north as the New York metropolitan area. And then after midnight and into the first part of tomorrow, a lot of this may glide maybe across New York and also across Long Island. It may very well be, and I'm shaking my head here,
It may
it may
miss
very
you.
well be that much of this area is just going to pass me right on by. I don't know what to do. It's been a short shower here and there over the last 3 weeks.
You've basically had a boilerplate over where you are.
Basically, that's absolutely true. Let me go one more radar here. Let's go a little further south down toward Wakefield. And you can see again, there are some showers and storms around Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Virginia. They have just moved past Richmond and again, moving east toward Chesapeake Bay, further north, practically on Chesapeake Bay. So at least the folks in the Virginias, at least the folks in portions of Maryland and Delaware, you're getting your fair share of moisture. But again, it'll be a struggle to get it much further north in the late night hours tonight and during the day tomorrow.
We don't usually do this, but can you bring up a radar? Is there a radar around Flagstaff, Arizona?
Let's try boom, Flagstaff and Coconino. And here you go. And these, of course, are generated by the so-called monsoons. Notice the movement is from southeast to northwest. And anywhere into, and again, if you live in this part of the country, Joe, if you live in this part of the United States, we refer to something like this as thunderstorms. They refer to them out in the Southwest as electrical storms. And I have been in the Southwest, and indeed, if you enjoy the sight of lightning and lightning bolts and whatever, you really get a good clear view, probably because the air is so much clearer, more transparent out there, as opposed to here in the East, where sometimes you're looking through a morass of haze. But out there, the lightning really is quite vivid and quite dynamic, and also can set off fires. There's been known to happen that lightning has struck and produced localized areas of wildfires in portions of New Mexico and Arizona and southern sections of California. So there you see, out here in the midst of northern Arizona, that they are getting in some spots concentrated, localized, but heavy downpours and electrical displays that are going on out again in Arizona and the Southwest.
All right. Meanwhile, if you think that through much of this summer with some of these days in the Northeast with thunderstorms that you have them in the forecast and then you don't wind up getting them, that somehow you think that you're the only place that happens to, I will point out that they and myself included, looking at some of the models from yesterday and last night showing quite a bit of rain and thunderstorm activity in North Georgia today. Well, guess what? Not a flake, not an ice pellet, not a raindrop, nothing. And instead, it's all down in South Georgia. There's a pretty solid area of rain south of Atlanta down I-75, some strong thunderstorms. I think right before you get, I don't know, is that Valdosta? I'm still learning where everything is around the state. And also in the south, pretty much the southern half of the state has got some downpours and thunderstorms. And also approaching Houston area from the northeast is a pretty healthy looking little line segment of heavy thunderstorms with torrential downpours. And that's actually down, actually it's more like it's approaching from the almost from the north to the south, moving southward. And that runs up from Houston all the way up the interstate to Dallas, Fort Worth, where we have some rain and thunderstorms going around there. And here's what's going on in the west, where you see the activity today in Arizona, number of flash flood warnings up. It may be raining in Vegas again. There's flash flood warnings up in southern Nevada, and also up in the northern part of the state. And you can see those showers continuing to move through Idaho and on up into Montana. The Storm Prediction Center tonight, where we have the activity in eastern Virginia and points east to the Delmarva Peninsula. They've had a marginal risk of severe weather, and that was certainly a wise thing for them to do. And also in a strip up in eastern Oregon and southeastern Washington, they have a marginal risk of severe weather. And as far as hazards go, flash flood watches are up for much of Virginia, all of West Virginia, and the eastern half of Kentucky, and also out west you've got flood watches up for let's say the western half of Arizona, although it's not quite even. You've got a few that go down into New Mexico, and then the eastern part of Nevada and parts of southern California, all in flood watches there. And as Joe showed on the drought map yesterday, the monsoon rains have been going on there for the better part of the last 6 weeks and still hasn't made much of a dent in the drought situation. For tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center has no severe weather indicated, just areas of general thunderstorms. You can see that on the map. And for day 3, we're all clear here in the Northeast and into the northern mid-Atlantic states, into the Ohio Valley and most of the Great Lakes, except for a small area in the western Great Lakes, as that dry air mass comes down, but no severe weather being indicated and none in the long range. And on the 7-day rainfall forecast, WPC has actually increased the rainfall amounts here to about 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches. So between what falls tonight and maybe what falls, now this takes us through next Wednesday night. So you add those two together. I guess they're not overly bullish. Otherwise, but with whatever the models are showing for early next week, otherwise, I think these amounts would be higher. But we'll see what happens as we get closer. Meanwhile, the Gulf Coast, the immediate Gulf Coast, on the edge of 1.5 to 3 inches, solid rainfall amounts of similar amounts for parts of Arizona into Utah, eastern Nevada, and much of the state of Colorado and into Wyoming. Seeing some significant rains. So on to the upper air, and I've got the European tonight because I thought this looked to me like it made the most sense. There's your trough dropping in to bring in that nice dry air. The heat ridge is from Kansas on westward, and that trough drops down, and it it doesn't move eastward because there's a big ridge out to the east and a big ridge out to the west. It's sort of trapped in the middle, and it's just going to sit around and cut off. Now, let me ask you, with this going on, I was kind of struggling with the idea of whether there might be some instability clouds around on Friday and on Saturday with this upper trough in the position that it's in.
Well, in fact, I would think if I was still doing television weather, and I'm sure you would do the same thing as well, I would, and since we're heading for a weekend, I would alert or warn people out in the beautiful country of eastern Long Island, the Hamptons, that if you're going to be running on out east and anticipating blue sky and brilliant sunshine, be careful because of the way this setup looks to me, Joe. Places that are immediately to the east of New York City, and that would include and encompass a good swath of Connecticut as well as Long Island, may be stuck with instability clouds for Friday and maybe even on into Saturday as well. You don't want to make any definitive promises, but again, in those places out east, they probably saying to themselves, "Oh, there's a wonderful beach weekend. We'll head out eastern Suffolk County, blah blah blah," and they'll come back and say, "What the heck was this all about?"
Yeah.
The skies are a little more cloudy than sunny, but that could very well happen, at least through the first half of the upcoming weekend, in a setup like this, with the way the upper trough is kind of trying to close off, if you will.
Right there, right over New York City is where the upper low is, and it doesn't really go anywhere. It's sitting just south of West Hampton Beach Saturday night. And then starts to lift up northward on Sunday, where you get more of a westerly wind in the upper atmosphere, and that should at least, get the whatever clouds are around Friday and Saturday to the east, and up in New England should start to push it out of the way. But that trough hangs around. We're so used to these weather systems just kind of moving along. In this particular case, the trough hangs around, and then another arm comes down from the western Great Lakes and drops southward for early next week and forms another cutoff, this one in western Pennsylvania. Now that, when I saw this, I thought, you know what, this might be something that we could benefit from the standpoint of rain. And there you see it for Monday, and it's just sort of sits there and actually strengthens to an extent right into Tuesday and Wednesday. It's still sitting in central Pennsylvania and western New York. So I'm kind of, I'm sort of hoping that this winds up verifying, because this could be a pretty decent rain producer over the course of the early part of next week.
Yes, and we certainly can use it too. Sometimes you get these troughs and they linger for a while. Then when the next one, as you pointed out, comes our way, it kind of accentuates it, kind of like drops into a gopher hole, if you will. It just the upper pattern just can't help itself to serve up a round of unsettled weather,
right?
And that may well be happening for the upcoming week, with the possibility of, as you just said, some much needed rainfall.
Now I'm going to bring up the GFS. See, the GFS, on the other hand, is a little different because it immediately takes that upper low and moves it up into Maine, which, if you take this literally, then for those areas to the east, it would be far less of a problem. But that part lifts up, and then another part of it drops back in for Monday into Tuesday. It's not as closed off as the European is, and it's a little bit further to the east, but not much. It's actually pretty close to what the European has. Cuts it off in Pennsylvania and upstate New York, and it just sort of lingers it there. And I'm missing a few hours in between here. By next Saturday, another trough and cut off low drop down into the Great Lakes and swing eastward. So if you're thinking that this is going to happen and then it'll get out of the way and we're going to go back to the heat, I'm thinking no. There may be another trough for the weekend of the 21st, 22nd. After that lifts out, you start to get a little bit of ridging, but then there's more troughing in Canada that's swinging around. So we can't discount the fact that the model may not yet be seeing just exactly what's going on up there, what's going to be going on up there. But I'm thinking you know what, I'm not going to say that I am not going to say that we're not going to get another prolonged heat wave because I got burned by saying that back in the early part of July more than once. So I'm not going to say it this time around, but at least for now, for the next 10 days anyway, we probably can say that we're not going to have to worry about any kind of prolonged heat and humidity. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
Well, if you go back over to my screen, I have on right now the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day outlook, and they
And and
absolutely
and,
agree
and,
with
and
you
they
on
were
that.
right, and they were going. Remember on the old 18, I think the old 8 to 14, they were going for above normal everywhere.
Right. Well, they changed their tune quite a bit. We have well, I'm not sure. Hang on for a second. One. So we're in the 40 to 50% category. They're leaning toward 40 to 50% probability of below normal. However, in this zone right here that you see over the Ohio Valley, at 60 to 70% probability of below normal temperatures running from the 16th through the 20th. That is from next Tuesday to the following Saturday. Below normal for a change. Temperatures encompassing much of the Midwest, the Mid Atlantic, and the Northeastern United States. So the air conditioners are going to get a prolonged rest from all of the extreme heat that they have been going through in recent days. Here again, a close up view. And right here again, probably better than 60 or 70% probability of below normal, encompassing a good part of Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, which has seen more than its fair share of rain. In fact, if you're wondering about precipitation, let's show you on the 6 to 10 day. They actually have above normal, and that's for areas that really need it, right here in the Northeast. And that eventually transitions over into near normal into the Ohio Valley and below normal for much of the Great Lakes, including Chicago and Milwaukee and on up toward Minneapolis. So it's below normal here, but according to the Climate Prediction Center, while we're going through a spell of below normal temperatures, above normal precipitation, which leads to the idea, Joe, that the reason why we're going to be below normal is because we're going to have quite a bit of cloud cover to deal with, and that cloud cover will be accompanied by some wetness. So it will be maybe a damp and coolish stretch of weather about the middle and latter part of next week if the CDC has its way.
Now, I want to show you the differences between the European and the GFS, not only with regards to the weekend, but with regards to early next week. So remember, the GFS, the European is left, and to an extent, it's deeper or stronger than the GFS. First off, with the European being initially with the way it cuts the low off and brings an upper low near New York City. Take a look at this. I don't know if you saw this, but uh, we're okay for Friday, obviously. With the front going by, but the boundary is just offshore, and with that upper low coming down, there actually pivots a little bit of rain into southeastern New England and eastern Long Island and Rhode Island on Saturday. So there you have,
Yeah,
as
we
you
saw that.
said,
Remember
yes,
back. Remember a few days ago, it looked like well, the GFS had what looked like initially looked like a little mini hurricane
right.
coastal low, and then they took it away, and then they kind of tried to bring it back or whatever. But the idea is the same. That yeah, as this thing closes off, a lot of the moisture, which looks initially like it's going out to sea, pivots backwards, and unfortunately, in the line of fire, just might be parts of eastern New England. Well, actually, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because again, they need the moisture, but unfortunate in the fact that the timing is such that it may coincide with the upcoming weekend.
And it may not be a lot; it'd just be enough to be annoying. Now, again,
Yes.
I would say if you probably draw a line from Boston to Hartford to New York City, from there west and north, you should be fine. But the other thing is the fact that you've got this next low near Chicago early Sunday morning that's dropping southeastward, and initially, because of how the European sets up the upper air, It doesn't bring any rain in here until Monday morning. It's got during early Monday morning. It's got a little bit of rain that pops up in eastern Pennsylvania, western New Jersey, but it really is more like late morning, early afternoon on Monday. Suddenly, there's this rain that's coming up from the south with a low in Virginia. And you'll see here Monday night and Tuesday, quite a bit of rain, actually substantial rain, if this is correct, with a low near Atlantic City and a lot of rain that falls in New Jersey and on up into the Catskills and over Long Island. The low just kind of sits there and rotates around. On Wednesday, we're still in it, and then it starts to lift up to the north come Thursday. Now, the GFS on the other hand would suggest, because it initially takes that first piece further east before it takes the next thing and drops it in, it would have rain, and you'll notice it here as soon as I pop it up. It really doesn't do much of anything with regards to Saturday in southeastern New England, and it's got the GFS. This is Sunday evening. Let me see if I got make sure I got the latest run. Okay, so it's actually backed off from this. It was trying to bring rain into western New Jersey by Sunday evening, so it is slower. So it's kind of gotten a little closer to the Europeans' idea with how the second system evolves. It was trying to have rain almost to western New Jersey by late Sunday afternoon, early Sunday evening. That's kind of backed off a bit on that. Do I have the radar? This is the actual rain amounts. Let's put the radar up instead. So, yeah, I mean, look at Sunday evening, Joe. The GFS has got rain, some little patchy showers in New Jersey and the south shore of Long Island that kind of runs out ahead of the main area that comes up on Monday. And then it rains all day Monday into Monday evening. Then that goes out. And then you get showery rains on Tuesday. And there's your low sitting south of Long Island early Wednesday morning and still there producing some showery rain. So, look, I think we're going to get some wet weather early next week. Starting on Monday, it might even go on and off into Wednesday, and then after that, perhaps weather conditions could improve somewhat as we head toward the end of the next week. But I don't think anybody's going to complain if we lose a few days to rain. For one thing, if that works out, we'll probably have a couple of days where the temperatures are going to have a tough time, maybe not much into the 70s. And perhaps in areas to the north, it might not even get out of the 60s. Who knows? With the low in that position. And then the second half, you go to the latter part of next week, it'll just turn drier and seasonal because there's no hot air around. So that's a good thing. And for my friends in the southeastern part of the United States, you can enjoy the fact that this air mass, this front here that's coming through tomorrow, comes all the way down almost to North Florida. So that means some of those nice, lovely dew points in the 50s and even some 40 dew points getting down through the Appalachians come Saturday morning. It's going to feel downright wonderful here when that happens. And I am looking forward to it.
Well, you mentioned about the temperatures, the changes in the temperature, and I just want to let everybody hear. This is courtesy of again an amazing guy, Rob Friedlowitz, who apparently keeps an incredible blog, an incredible record of past weather events in New York City. Very, very meticulous he is. And Rob, for this date in 1962, Friday, it was a Friday, August the 10th, 1962, Joe, just 2 days after a high at Central Park of 90 degrees. This afternoon, this is August 10th, 1962, 2 days after a 90-degree reading, the afternoon temperature today only in the upper 50s as winds were from the northeast and skies were overcast. The high was 60, which occurred just after midnight, and that 60-degree high was the chilliest high in August since 1911, when the high on August 31st, 1911 was 59. So in 1962, the temperature hit 90 on August the 8th, and 2 days later struggled to make it out of the upper 50s and barely touched 60 degrees. And as the late Tex Antoine would have said, Do weather change? Yes, it do.
Yes, it
Unbelievable.
certainly does. Now, here's the issue with this tropical wave. Just want to show you. We've been pointing out this band of westerly winds that rolls across the Caribbean, and actually, I'm just trying to see here. Actually, you've got northwesterly winds in the northeast Gulf of Mexico, and then westerly winds across virtually all of the Caribbean, and then all of the Atlantic north of 20 degrees north. That L you see there, that 1011 low, that is what represents the wave. It's in a very narrow area where conditions are at best, let's say, marginally conducive for development because there's strong easterly shear to the south and you've got wicked westerly shear to the north. That band of westerly winds does not get out of the way. And that's the reason why this wave is just not going to be able to do anything. And I'm just looking down the road, just taking this out a little further. You can see the deep trough in the east early next week, how strong it is. This is at the 200. We're looking way up in the atmosphere at like 30,000 feet here. I'm just trying to get a gauge of down in the tropics. I mean, the upper air conditions do get a little better once we get to about August 20th and beyond. There's not as much shear, and that belt of westerly winds north of 20 degrees north disappears. It pushes much further north of 25. So there is, some improvement in the upper air conditions, but then again, here comes another upper low that is just taking a look here. There's strong easterly shear that redevelops in the tropical Atlantic. I mean, I'm looking at this, Joe. I'm trying to how is something going to develop with all this shear around? It's all over the place.
It's going to rip. It's going to rip everything to shreds.
Pretty much.
It can't develop. Very, very unfavorable.
You can't.
As you mentioned at the top of the show, and near the top of the show, Joe, I mean, we're in a La Nina weather pattern, and this would allude to the fact that we should be seeing a lot more tropical activity. In fact, somebody on the chat board, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, pointed out that tomorrow is the official first day, on average, of the first hurricane of the summer season. But ain't no way we're going to see a hurricane tomorrow, folks.
Nope. All right, let's go on. Johnny Quest got another 3 inches of rain up in northwestern Virginia today, and he had 4 inches just a couple of days ago. So he's just piling it on where he is. I have not seen any rain here today. We had a lot of clouds. It didn't get out of the 70s, and in fact, this morning it was 65. So it was nice and cool when I went down to the dog park. But yeah, didn't have any. I thought we'd get something, and we just didn't. I heard thunder at some point around mid to late morning, and that's the end of that. So let's do a little Briller Jeopardy. Mother Briller is feeling a bit better, and that's good to hear. And I've got questions for you tonight.
Oh.
Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
So, here we go. You ready? How many chemical? All right. How many chemical elements are there?
My daughter-in-law could tell you. She teaches chemistry.
But she's
she
not.
Teaches high school chemistry.
She's not. The question is not for her. The question is for you.
I understand. And they're always and they're always discovering some new element. I'll say 103.
Not too bad. 118. 118.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, these are all random questions, so there's no theme in this category.
It's potpourri night.
Yes, exactly. What is the highest waterfall in the world?
Oh, damn it. There's a waterfall that I remember visiting. It's near Quebec City. And I was there 50 years ago. I hate to say that. I don't remember how tall it was. I'll say, and did did we see a tall waterfall when Bernard and I were in Oregon 5 years ago? I don't know. I'll say 1,000 feet.
No. Where is it? Not.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Where is it? Uh, Paramaribo, Suriname. I don't know.
I would have said Chickasaw Falls. No,
Yeah,
it's Angel Falls in Venezuela. Now, honestly, when I saw the question before I saw the answer, the first thing that came to mind was Victoria Falls in Africa, but wasn't that? It's Angel Falls in Venezuela. How many hearts does an octopus have?
it has 8 legs. I'll say 4 hearts.
Uh,
Eight legs and 4 hearts.
3 hearts.
Yeah, I was close.
Close.
Hmm.
Now this one you probably should get. What planet has the most gravity or the strongest gravitational pull?
Jupiter.
That is correct. When
Yes.
did the Cold War end?
I guess when the Berlin Wall fell. So I guess that would be what, 1989?
89. Yes, exactly. And the last question is, how many national parks are there in the United States?
Oodles.
All right.
National parks. National parks. Um, Not state parks,
Not
because you get
state
a lot of
parks,
those too.
national parks.
National parks. Well, 50 states, 50 national parks, maybe add a few extras for the heck of it. I'll say 60.
That was the logical way to do it. And the answer is 63.
Okay. And there you
Because you
go.
got to figure that maybe, I don't think Delaware has a national park. Maybe it does with the beaches. Never mind. I was going to say the small states like Delaware and Rhode Island maybe don't
The
have
current
national.
president, the current president can tell you all about Delaware. So
Stop. No politics. No
right.
politics. All right. So you are not going to be here tomorrow. And therefore, I think because there's not a whole lot happening, I can safely take the day off. So we will be back on Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Does that
That is
work?
correct.
Okay? So we'll be
It
back.
works
We'll be
for
back
me.
on Sunday. So no show tomorrow, folks. No show on Friday. No show on Saturday, unless it looks like the world is going to come to an end, which I don't think it is. And we will be back
If we have,
on Sunday.
here's a question. Even though it's not meteorologically related, it's geophysically related. If, let's say, on Saturday morning, there was a Richter 5.7 earthquake in the New York metropolitan area, would we go on the air with something like that?
I guess we could. If you let me know, I guess we
What,
could.
in advance?
Well,
In
no,
advance of the earthquake?
while it's
Oh,
happening.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just wondering,
Yeah, I mean we
does it really
could.
have to be a weather-related event for us to go on? It might be something else.
Well, if there's an earthquake that is of, great magnitude, uh, then maybe we could go on. But on the but that's like
About
that's probably a long shot chance of happening.
Well, about 12 or 14 years ago, I did a two-part series on earthquakes, and I interviewed Klaus Jacob over at the Lamont Doherty Earth Science Center in the Palisades. And Klaus Jacob says this part of the country, our area, the tri-state area, is overdue for a Richter 5 or Richter 6 earthquake. That we actually had a couple of those in the late 19th and late 18th centuries. And he says, watch out, it can happen. It may happen almost any time. Just for, something to keep all of you in the back of the head that something like that may happen sometime
All
down
right.
the
Well,
road.
look, in the event that it does happen, I'm available. So just let me know. All right.
Okay.
So
All right.
thanks everybody for being here tonight. As always, it's wonderful to see the regulars on a regular basis on this show, and we'll see you Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Nighty night.
Night night.